Alrighty. Is this okay? Is this an okay way to spend a Saturday afternoon? I think so. Very good, very good. Okay, this next one. Who can tell me what they think the letter's going to be? Oh, alrighty. I think we're getting the hang of this. Alright, we're going to go. Next game. Here we go. This game is going to be called on your green card. If you don't have a green card, please leave the country. Oh, come on. Look, that's funny. All right, listen. You pay me as your pastor. You don't pay me as a musician or a comedian. And so, well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't get paid. Yeah, that's very true. Hey, Jeff. Don't you have... No, that one's not going to go there. I'm already in trouble for a couple other things. I just bite my tongue and just... Yes, indeed, brother. I hear you. Amen. Okay, on your green... I should have picked a different color. I didn't even think about it until this very moment about a green card. I know in some areas in Virginia right now, we've just made a whole lot of people very, very nervous. That the only way you can stay is if you have a green card right now. But this one is going to be O. Now listen. We're going to go around the outer perimeter of your card, so your free space, it just doesn't matter. You should see the gray blocks are already blocked in. The white ones, they don't count. Spelling the letter O. And in this, I'm also going to give you some Hope Chapel trivia, maybe a little bit of Foursquare trivia. Get you a little bit more up on who we are as a church, a little bit more about me. Might even have some trivia about PJ, but I got to get her permission first. All right, everybody, take a look at the board. That's what we're spelling. All right, yes, indeed. Okay, are we ready to go? Yeah. Are we ready to go? Yeah. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3. First one's N37. N37. Again, we're going around the outside, so the only ends are going to be your top square and your bottom square right in the middle of your green card. I know. 071. 071. You got 5 to choose from in the O column. 071, we're a long way away from having bingo, and so hopefully this game, it's not going to speed up because the computer does it every 15 seconds. I-19. I-19. Now, the reason we go a little bit slower is because we want the younger ones in the audience to be able to participate too. So I know the adults, it's easy, 068. It's pretty simple for the grown-ups to sit there and find it, but it might take a little bit more time for the little ones. It's my opinion, as I'm talking and you're playing, everybody just kind of pay attention to both. 068, it's my opinion that the kids of today are not the church of the future, they're the church of right now. And so it's not a matter of excluding the kids, it's about including them in what we do. G49. We include them, bless you, Devin. That was a good sneeze. Let me see your nose. Your snot walker clean? Attaboy. Good job. All right, G58. He's good. Haley, Patience, where are you guys? All right, there's one of them. Where's Haley? Huh? Don't tell me that. That's not even funny. I-23. You are so in timeout. I-23. Not you, Devin. I was looking over your head, buddy. I'm sorry. I-23. All right, let's see. Okay, I-23 after this. We have N39. All right, let's see. A little bit of trivia about me. Who can tell me what I did for 21 years before I started Hope Chapel, before we planted this? Was in the Marine Corps. Joined the Marine Corps in November of 1983. N39. 072. 1983. Spent 21 years in the Marine Corps. I was first, 072, I was first stationed in Quantico in 1985, beginning of 85. I was stationed in Quantico at the helicopter squadron over there. 074, at the time, and maybe some of you can relate to this, you leave the house, you leave the protection of your own home, you leave the covering of your parents, and you go out in the real world. Anybody know what I'm talking about, the real world? I'm not talking about the television show, I'm talking about the world that can be cold and hard and mean. I-18. I lost the protection of the family, and then all of a sudden, my mom and dad, they could no longer protect me from my own bad decisions. B1. Oh, did you not have that one? You did have it? Good. You didn't have it. Okay. B1. So where's my bride? Oh, I know what she's doing. She's getting something ready for this evening. I-20. I-20. So I was fortunate enough. I was stationed over there at Quantico where they got the helicopters. I was fortunate enough to be a Marine One crew chief for President Reagan. We're not going to pull politics into this, but N-34, I happen to think he was one of the finest presidents we've had in centuries. I think he was absolutely a phenomenal president, and I had the honor of flying him. If anybody's ever seen the helicopter land, N-34, if anybody's seen the helicopter land in G-52. G-52, if anybody's ever seen the helicopter land, and that really good-looking, absolutely gorgeous Marine standing in dress blues that opens the door and salutes the President N-38 as he walks out. Everybody know who I'm talking about? That used to be me. That was me. Yes, indeed. And to prove it, I have pictures where I am, oh my gosh, I was 30 years younger and probably 100 pounds lighter. That was a long time ago, G50. It was about the same time that I met my bride. Where are you at, bride? G50, I must be tired. I-22, because these one-liners are just entering they're flowing in my brain right now. In the kitchen, huh? So I met PJ. I was just a lonely single Marine, B4. Lonely single jarhead living in the barracks. A bunch of friends went up to Washington, D.C. Actually, now this night we went to Springfield, B4. Went up to Springfield, Virginia. Everybody know where that's at, right? I am not proud to admit it, but it does kind of tell you who I was and where I was at the time. Met my wife at a bar. Doesn't make me a bad guy. G48. Yep, pay attention to me. Pay attention to this side. I-26. I-26 is your next number. Again, we're doing the letter O. We're going around the outside perimeter of your card. The card's grayed out for your convenience. I-26. So I had dated several girls, but there was just something about this one that I had just met. I-29. She was special. Largely, she was special because she was the only girl that I could find that would date me twice. I-29. Most of the time, I'd go out on dates, I'd ask them back, and 070. Oh my goodness, I'd get their phone numbers. I had a lot of girls' phone numbers. I just found that it was the phone at the laundromat that would ring. And it wasn't going, the person I was trying to hit, it was just, there wasn't the right person that was on the other end. N-32. N-32. Well, her father, PJ's father, was a Marine. Well, PJ was adopted. Her father, her mom remarried. So her father was 062. 062. Her father was considerably older. And her father actually served in World War II. He was a Marine. And saw a considerable amount of combat in World War II. So you can imagine a young Marine. And for me, in the 80s, I was really intimidated by this guy. 063, thank you, 063. Look at that, I'm 2 seconds behind and I'm already getting my jobs at risk. Okay, 063. So I think I dated PJ for a good couple of months because what she said of her dad, he was hard and he was just kind of a tough fella. N45. N45. So it took me a couple of months before I finally went and met this guy. And when I did, he turned out to be an okay guy and we established a really good relationship. We needed to because I was absolutely falling head over heels in love with PJ, I-27. And when I didn't know, she had the same feelings for me that I had for her, and it was December of that year that we got married. We got married in the chapel at Quantico, I-27. Right after that, we got stationed at Iwakuni, Japan, where I flew search and rescue. Anybody ever watch the Coast Guard, I-25? Anybody ever watch the Coast Guard show where they're dropping guys down off a hook, off a cable, off a helicopter that's hovering, and they're helping people get off of... getting out, digging people out of the water, they're getting people off of wrecks, N-42. Had an opportunity to do that in Iwakuni. Then we came back to New River. When we went back to New River, that's when we went to Iraq, went to East Timor, went to Somalia. And you did typical things that you think of United States Marines taking care of. Doing the nation's business, went there and saw things that I really wish I hadn't seen because I still dream of them today. I-16, my goodness sakes, everybody can see the board. Who did not know it was I-16? 064. Hey, I'm not missing a beat. 064. In that time, we have two small, when they were born, they were small. They're not small anymore. 064. We have two boys, one Michael, one Patrick. Michael lives down in Lynchburg, Virginia. N40 got his master's degree from Liberty University. Patrick, our youngest, is over in, where is Patrick? Where did he move to? What's the name of the little town? Harrisonburg. I keep thinking Harrisburg. Harrisonburg, 065. Patrick's currently going to college. He did his time in the Air Force, went overseas, did a deployment overseas, 065. Next number is 066. Remember, do the outside perimeter of your cards. Patrick was in the Air Force. Our youngest son joined the Virginia National Guard. As soon as he joined the Virginia National Guard, he got deployed with the regular Army over to Iraq. He's our oldest son. When he was down in Lynchburg, 073, he met an absolutely lovely young lady named Michelle. They since got married. They just celebrated, I believe, their 5th wedding anniversary. Michelle is a nurse in the Army. She's a captain in the United States Army, I-24. And we just found out a couple of weeks ago that we are going to be grandparents for the very first time. Yeah, absolutely. Truly, truly blessed. We've got wonderful kids. We retired in 31. We retired from the Marine Corps. When I say we, I think PJ deserves as much credit as I do. I did almost 21 years. PJ did 19 of those 21 years. So I figure if she's able to pull off 19 of those of that career in 31, I-28 is your next number. If she's able to pull off a career of 19 years in the Marine Corps, I believe I can say we retired. Retired in 2004. In 1997, I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. B6. 97, I could absolutely care less about church. My father was a Baptist pastor. B6, I was not interested in going to church. I was more interested because I kind of got hooked on what the world had to offer. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Anybody listening?
Yep.
Because I like listening to my own story. I really do, because it shows what God's able to do. So, in 1997 and 35, 1997, and pay attention to your board. We've got to be getting close. G47, not with a G, we're probably not. Not even, okay. G47. Yeah, this is tough without the B column. So in 97, I went to Okinawa, Japan. At the time, God knew that I needed to get away from PJ, not because we were unhealthy, but because she was my protector. Does that make sense? She made sure I didn't get in trouble, even though I was doing bad things, B15. I would do things that maybe a good Christian shouldn't have done. PJ would keep me out of trouble, G56. And I found that I was more dependent on my bride than I was my Heavenly Father, who I kind of put in a box and stuck him in a drawer. I was a Christian, I knew who he was, but I just didn't walk that life. G56. What's Okinawa, Japan? B11. What I found there is I no longer had the protection of the person that loved me the most, and I got into some little bit of trouble. I didn't get really much trouble in the Marine Corps, but I did get in trouble with myself. You know what I'm talking about? Where all of a sudden that conviction that's in your gut, you know what you're doing is wrong. B11, I-21 is your next card. I-21. You know what you're doing is wrong, you're getting convicted, but you don't know where the conviction is coming from. And so I went to the chapel on Okinawa one day. I went to the base chapel, I-21, your next number is N43. I went to the chapel on one Sunday morning. I don't know what took me there. I was hungover as you could get. That was one of the problems I had, was with drinking. N43. Yep, we need all the kids. Parents, we please need to get the kids away from the food tables while Miss BJ's working on them. Brandon, you need to come up here, partner. B3, there's a B for you, folks. So I went to the chapel that day. I could not tell you what the chaplain preached about, 061. I couldn't tell you what the message was about. All I could tell you was the Holy Spirit was working on me that day because there was a conviction like I'd never felt before. I sat in the back pew because I didn't want to be noticed. 061. Next one is B9. I didn't want to be noticed. The problem is, and I want you to hear me, can we play bingo and I preach at the same time? Yeah. I sat in the back row because I didn't want to be noticed, but what I recognized is God noticed me exactly where I was and who I was at that very moment. The Holy Spirit got a hold of my heart, and I clearly remember God telling me, He didn't say G46. That just happened to be the next number. But I so clearly remember God just kind of rattling my heart just a little bit and saying, you know what, son, this isn't who I called you to be. And along with the head knowledge, all of a sudden, isn't it amazing how God has the ability to touch our heart? I-17. And he touched my heart at that very moment because the head knowledge and the heart knowledge, they came into conjunction with each other, and all of a sudden it was like an intersection. They ran into each other, and I absolutely recognized that one, I'm not a complete person without him, and two, I'm not a complete person without my wife, B13. So remember, PJ was back in Pensacola, Florida at the time. I'd been away for almost a year, a little less than a year. B13 is your next number. We decided, you know what, we need to be a family and we need to do this right. G57. So I called PJ. I said, what do you think about moving the kids to Japan? She was all by herself. The kids were very small. And so she absolutely did a Herculean effort in moving the entire household and 2 small boys from Pensacola, Florida, all the way overseas to Japan. We met them. We stayed there for 3 more years. I was in Japan for 7 years. PJ was there for 6. She was there for 6, G54. The first 3 years, we had a great time. We absolutely loved it. In 36, this was the time, this was the exact season where we went to Somalia. We didn't go to Somalia. This is where did we go? We went to Iraq again. The first time we went to Iraq, and we went to East Timor in 36. East Timor, not a lot of people know about. B12 is your next number. A lot of people don't know about East Timor. East Timor is a small island out in the Pacific, and there's tribal warfare going on there. A lot of drugs, a lot of tribes, very similar to Somalia. But East Timor, if I ever had to say, Somalia ranked number 1 for the grossest things I've seen. 075, Iraq was probably where we experienced the most tactics. But East Timor was where we experienced the most brutality. And I was afraid of the people that were over there. It didn't matter how big our gun was. B14. It was there that I witnessed the absolutely insanity that human nature is capable of doing. And while I'm doing this, what do you think PJ's doing? She found a church. I wasn't interested in church. She found this little place, B10. What do you think the name of the church was that she found in Okinawa, Japan? Hope Chapel. See, it took Hope Chapel, Okinawa. Yep. It took a long time to get to that part, but I figured, you know, if I got to talk anyway, because watch this. I'll show you why I'm talking as much as I am. G60. Let me give you an example of just how awkward bingo can be. Uh-oh.
Wow. That's awkward.
Wow, what happened? Oh, dear.
It says filter warning because you were going to talk bad about bingo.
No, I wasn't. All right, hey, I don't know if we lost anything. All right, we're going to stop it just for a second. I have no idea why the computer just did what it did. But right. Yeah, hang on. Yep, give me the first one.
0, 1, 1, 3, 6.
All right, there's a good one. Okay. Gonna get the next one. Didn't we have one over in the corner?
Nope.
No, okay. Very good. Anyway, all right. Here's what I need everybody to do. We're going to pretend that there's another game playing. And I'm going to show you the awkwardness and why do I talk so much during bingo. One, I have you as a captive audience, and there's things that are just fun little trivia pieces. But listen. That was 15 seconds of silence. See, wouldn't bingo be boring if that's how we did it?
There you go.
See, I mean, that would be bad. Okay. All right, very good. Next game, let's see. A new game will begin shortly. All right, your blue card. All right, now this one we really have to pay attention to the little gray squares because we're not going all the way to the far right. We're just doing the G.
There's no O's.
There's no O's. Now, I don't know if it calls O's. You would think it's smart enough that it doesn't, so we will see. We're going to be using your blue card. Everybody got a blue card?
Yeah.
There you go. Remember, B-I-N-G. That is all we're using. All right, here we go. I-21. I-21 on your blue card. Again, it's going to be the letter P using B-I-N and G. I-21. Where did I leave off in my story? We got 2 seconds. Hope Chapel, Okinawa. I-22. Thank you. Yep. Hope Chapel, Okinawa. I was gone. PJ was going. PJ met some wonderful people at that great little church. Hope Chapel, Okinawa was about the same size as we are. They're not a whole lot bigger. G52 is your next number. So PJ, she's getting involved while I'm gone. She took over the spiritual leadership role of our household because it was a position in 42. So far, it's not calling any O's, so this is good. Everybody know what I'm talking about? The spiritual leadership of the household.
Yeah.
I chose not to do it, and so she had no alternative. B13, she had no alternative but to take over the spiritual role of the household. And so she took over because she knew it was more important to get Scripture into our boys and to make sure that they grew up at least in a partially healthy Christian household in 31. So I'm doing great things for our nation. I'm out drinking. I'm out doing things I probably shouldn't be doing. I'm hanging out with the wrong crowd. I'm hanging out with people that are a bad influence who can relate. B12. You're doing things you shouldn't be doing, not just because they're bad for you, but they dishonor God. They dishonor the one that knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. He set you apart with talents, gifts, and abilities. And now you're basically laughing you're laughing in his face. B12 and then B6. So while I'm over doing great things for the country and I'm seeing things that I wish I hadn't seen, PJ's back, and just like she mentioned this morning, she's just worshiping and she's thanking God that up to this point I've been kept safe. N37. Yes, there were several times we came back from missions and there were holes in the helicopter. And yes, there were many times, not many, but there were occasions that we didn't come home with everybody that we left with. B3. And so you can imagine from a wife's perspective, I want you to hear this, moms and wives, from a wife's perspective, B3. As she's watching the news and families are being told back home that so-and-so is not returning, you can imagine the anxiety that could be coming up in a young wife in 43. So this morning when she's sitting up in front of you and she thanked God that her children, and her, at least at the time, that her husband was safe, it was because not all wives had that luxury. In 44. So it touches my heart knowing that my bride was praying for my safety when I was over there doing those things. But the whole time she was in church in 44, she was praying. Not that I just be kept safe, that God would get a hold of me. G51. So we come back. Remember earlier I told you that my dad was a Baptist pastor. We got back to Okinawa. The deployment was over. All the stuff that we were doing was over. Things were getting back to normal. We're reintroduced to our family as B5. The very first Sunday that we're home, PJ takes me to this church that she had found called Hope Chapel. I couldn't stand it because it wasn't traditional enough. They didn't use hymnals. B5, the pastor had a difficult time. In I-26, the pastor had a difficult time speaking. He was dyslexic, and so sometimes when he would read, words wouldn't come out right, or he couldn't read the passage, and things just seemed awkward. And I don't know what on earth they were doing, I-26, but this crazy bunch of knuckleheads during was singing, they would raise their hands. They'd be worshiping, those hands would fly, and I thought they all had questions in 39. Didn't understand why the pastor didn't stop the service and just pick one of them, because all of them had questions. I was the only ones with my hands in my pocket. I-23. And PJ, she's like, what do you think? I said, we're never coming back here because I tried taking over that leadership role again. Very quickly, I was put in my place. In 36, she looked at me straight in the face and she said, yes, you are. And it was with an authoritative tone that I knew at that very moment, for self-preservation, I need to listen to that authoritative tone. But loved ones, it wasn't the authoritative tone of my wife that I heard in 40. It was the authoritative tone of our Heavenly Father. That at the same time, PJ said, yes, you are. I heard my Heavenly Father in my heart going, this is what you're supposed to do. G46. And so I listened. We'll make a really, really long story short. 3 years later was when I got called into ministry. Became the assistant pastor of Hope Chapel in Okinawa. I-29. Got licensed in the Japan Foursquare Gospel Church. Eventually, I got ordained in the Japan Foursquare Gospel Church. I was elected to the bylaws committee to help the nation of Japan, I-29 and G60. G60 is your next number. To help the nation of Japan write the bylaws that were going to govern their denomination. And so for a year, every month, once a month, I would fly up to Tokyo, B-14. I would fly up to Tokyo and we would work with other Japanese nationals. I had an interpreter that would interpret for me. But also remember, B-14 is your next number. Remember, I was also a United States Marine. I was a Marine at the same time I was in B-1. So simultaneously, I was a Marine. I was the assistant pastor of Hope Chapel, Okinawa. I was on the Japan Foursquare Bylaws Committee. I was finishing up my bachelor's degree and eventually my master's degree all at the same time. PJ was running the Sunday school department in 45. She ran the Sunday school department. I was on the church council. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget we were raising 2 small kids. I coached soccer and baseball for both of our children. I-17. And simultaneously, while all of that's going on, if that wasn't enough, I-17, PJ at night, and I at night, we taught for Central Texas University. As instructors, PJ taught in the business school, and I taught computers, B2. So when people say today, you guys sure seem awful busy, yes, we are. But I believe everything up to this point in your life, everything that you do, everything that God has, those doors, I-27, everything that you've experienced, all the things that you get to encounter, can be, if you allow it, can be used in preparation for something greater. I-27, your next number is I-28. Are they in the kitchen, Miss PJ? Okay, that sounded like they were in the kitchen. I-28. I-18. Got to be getting close. No? Okay. So anyway, that's how I got, it's a much longer story. We'd have to play bingo for 3 days to tell you about being called into ministry in 32. So that's how we got to Japan. That's how what we did in Japan. And that's what we did all at once. We did all of those things, just finishing our schooling. PJ also works for, B8 is your next number. PJ also worked for the Department of Defense Schools, the Human Resources Department. Right now, if you don't know, I think most of you do, but not all of you, both PJ and I are bivocational. B8, I run the safety department at the airport on Quantico. And then I also obviously work on the Hope Center, and then G54 is your next number, and then also run, just obviously senior pastor of Hope Chapel. So between those, we stay very busy. PJ works in the Human Resources Department for Prince William County Schools in 33. And so our days are completely consumed, and our evenings are consumed over at the Hope Center, loving on you guys. And so when people say, wow, you guys sure seem busy, I look back and think, God totally knew where we were going to be right now, and He's prepped us for it. Is that okay?
Yep.
See, so where are you at? Now, I don't know if you can play bingo. You're not going to be able to tell me your story, but maybe this is a good time, G55, for you guys to figure out your story and say, okay, maybe all the stuff that I'm experiencing right now, maybe it's not all bad. G47. Does that make sense? Isn't it amazing how we're able to look at circumstances and situations in our life and say how miserable we are? Anyone? I heard one. Yeah, see, and B15 is your next number. And see, I think it's absolutely amazing. Sometimes if we look at it, yeah, it might be difficult, but maybe it's not as bad as we think it is, because maybe in the future, God's going to sit there and we're going to look back on it and go, my goodness sakes. I'm so glad I experienced that season, because that season, G58, that season has prepared me for right now. Is that okay? Does that make sense? See, something silly, something as simple as us sitting here playing bingo and me telling you my story in N41. Oh my goodness, you guys are excited. Are we close? 2 away. Okay, N41. Miss PJ, we're getting awful close to a bingo out here. G49. Two B or not to be? B9 to B4, huh? Okay, well, there's an I-20. Do you need that? I-20. So that is my story. In 2004, PJ and I, we retired from the Marine Corps. We had a wonderful retirement ceremony. I-20, G59. Now check this out. This is a step of faith. We retired from Japan. Did not have a job. We did not know what to do. We didn't have a vehicle. Well, we had a vehicle in 34. We had a vehicle, but the steering wheel was on the wrong side of the vehicle, and we weren't allowed to bring it back here. So we came to the United States. We had absolutely nothing except just a few things that we had in Japan with us. I-24. Everybody's looking for bees. All right, here we go. The next number, G53. No, it's a Japanese car, and a legitimate Japanese car. It doesn't pass the safety standards for the United States. G53. So no, we didn't have a vehicle when we came back. I didn't have a job. PJ didn't have a job. Listen to this, because this is God's provision. G48. I didn't have a job, and PJ didn't have a job, but my old boss that I used to work with in Japan, here's your next number. Maybe this is it. N38. No? All right. The boss I used to work for in Okinawa, Japan, he turned out to be the commanding officer of the airport where I now work. I was getting ready to retire. He gave me a call, and he said, hey, are you interested in a job when you retire? N35. I figured since I didn't have a job, I couldn't tell him no. It was doing exactly what I did in the Marine Corps, except now on the civilian side. So I told him I'd take the job. The funny thing was, I figured I'd have to interview or compete for it, I-25. I thought I'd have to interview, compete, and go up against other people, but because I was a veteran and because of other things, I didn't have to interview, I didn't have to compete, I didn't have to do anything. I got a veteran's preference hire. And at that point, we knew that we were going to move, we were going to move from Japan, G57. Boy, G's are almost completely clobbered, aren't they? I don't know. I don't know. Yep, it'll keep going. G50, wow. So we pointed the car to Virginia. Well, that's odd. Why is the N flashing? Oh, that is. Uh-oh. Oh, now wait a minute. Now Now hang on. Hang on a minute. I'm seeing a conspiracy. We got one in the back.
Okay.
We got one in the back. I'm seeing a conspiracy.
That was my car, not his.
Ma'am. We do have a law enforcement official here in the room with us.
You handed them to me.
I'm sorry, you handed the cards out.
You handed them to me.
You handed the cards out.
You did whatever.
You ready?
Do we trust her? Okay, that's good. All right, let's see. The first number, what is it?
01213.
There you go. All right, very good. All right, hang on.
I've been waiting for that beat for like the last 5
Hang on,
months.
hold it down just for a minute, guys. Hold it down, please. I can't hear you.
01202.
There you go. Very good. All right. Good job, guys. Are we having fun? Is this okay? You guys don't mind hearing my story, do you? Okay, good. What'd you get? Uh-oh. Where's Christy? Christy's just... Are you okay? I think all your things are gone. Did you see? She's watching them. That is so good. That's the Drive in a t-shirt. That's got to be a really, really tiny t-shirt if they're able to put it in the same size as a CD case. It wouldn't fit this old boy, let me tell you. All right, very good. Thank you, my dear. I think I've got the prettiest bingo assistant. All right, here we go. The next game is E. Now the E, the middle line, is only going to go to the free space. Yep, it only goes to the middle. So you can use your free space, so you're really only using the first two left-hand blocks. Well, how about that? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I just, whatever. No, we'll do it like this, or it'll say, okay, do it the way it's grayed out on your card, because that's probably what the computer recognizes as a winner. So disregard this one, so we're going to go to the next one over. All right, we ready to go? Your purple card, make sure you're looking at the purple. That's what we're looking for, plus this one. All right, and here we go. The first one is 064. 064. So you got to imagine, as a pastor moving from Japan, I had two G60. I had two teenage sons at the time. One was going to be a junior in high school. One was going to be a freshman in high school. As a father, one of the things that I knew my responsibility, G60 and 066. My responsibility was to care for my children. Everybody understand that, yes? And now I'm moving from Japan. I'm moving here without a job. I had absolutely no money. I had no job. We did have money saved up. 075. And so we moved here knowing that we were going to plant a church. But when we were in Japan, probably a year out, 075, we knew we were going to plant Hope Chapel, G52. We just didn't know where it was going to go. We had no idea where we were going to plant. So what we prayed was, God, we will put a church wherever you provide employment. Because I knew I needed to care for my family. And for me, if you've gone to Hope Chapel long enough, you know that God comes first in my personal life. And I'll tell you, I'm not first in PJ's life. I hope you're okay with that. I'm not first in her life. God is. And believe it or not, even though I love PJ, I'm 23, even though I love PJ with all my heart, she is not first in my life. And I equate this to putting on a shirt, a button-down shirt. If that first button's not lined up, nothing else is going to work. You can get all the way to the end of the shirt, and the buttons still aren't going to line up. No matter how hard you try, now you're just going to look funny. Does that make sense? Yeah. 070. So we knew we needed to provide for our families. And I knew for a fact if God would just provide employment, I-18, I would put a church wherever He wanted. So we're in Hawaii. I get the final phone call. I knew we were looking at this job in Quantico, Virginia, I-18. Remember, that's where we met. This was the same airport that I worked at back in the 1984-85 time frame. I-26. Exact same spot, exact same airport. As a matter of fact, the office that I work in is less than 30 feet away from where PJ and I took marriage counseling back in 1985. B4. So I got hired there, so I knew we were going to point the car to Virginia. B4. We'll say, I'll tell you after. N44. So we're going to point the car to Virginia. On our way, PJ decided she needed to start doing some interviewing, or at least throwing some resumes out there. N44. This story's going to go fast. G53, so I'll tell it really quick. She sent out a resume when we were just traveling through Denver. We took 45 days to drive cross country. We were just going to have fun with our kids. They'd gotten cheated over the last 7 years we were in Japan, so we were just going to have a good time. So we're driving across country, N33. We're driving across country. We hit Denver. We go to a couple ball games. She puts in a couple of resumes. We're continuing across country. We make the whole trip. We go down to her parents. She's down in Florida. We're visiting them. She has this phone interview, the first phone interview with this company. I'm not even sure she realized that she'd applied for. She just sent them a resume, B10. So she's on this phone interview. It's a little bit before July 4th. And they call back the same day. You know, after you have an interview, they just basically said, you know, we'll be in touch. Well, they got in touch about 10 minutes later. 069. Remember, we had no idea where we were going to park or point the car. We knew we were coming to Virginia. She really didn't work hard on applying. We were going to do that when we got here, 069. They called and they asked, when can you come up? She thought she was going up for a second interview. She didn't go up for a second interview. She went up there because they offered her the job on the spot. So PJ and I now, we have 2 jobs, the same jobs that we've had the last 10 years that we've been in the Virginia area, 068. 2 full-time, very well-paying positions that we are extremely blessed to have. Both of those only took 1 resume and 1 interview. That's because God's hand is in this, in 32. So we both have a job, and then we planted Hope Chapel. We thought we were going to be in Fredericksburg, so it started off as Hope Chapel, Fredericksburg. If you're ever at the Hope Center, here's some fun trivia that very few people know. If you're ever at the Hope Center, you're going to see our old white trailer, B2. Our white trailer has a license plate, HCF1. See, I was an arrogant young pastor thinking I'm better than most, and so B2, 073. We're going to grow and grow and grow, and we're going to need a fleet of trailers to get these things moved around. So HCF stood for Hope Chapel, Fredericksburg. And the 1 was there because I figured we're going to need 2, 3, and 4. Well, we didn't need 2, 3, and 4. We did need to grow trailer just a little bit. But every time you look at B13, every time you look at that trailer, actually, believe it or not, no, look at the trailer we have now because we transferred that tag. If you look at the trailer, actually, it's right outside. It's HCF. It's for Hope Chapel, Fredericksburg, B13 and 067. So we were up in Stafford because that's where really God called us. That's where our heart was. Hope Chapel grew to a healthy size. We were a healthy middle-class church, and then we opened the Hope Center. I-22. Healthy middle-class church. Lots of active duty military they came. I-22. We opened the Hope Center, and that turned into, nobody be offended by this, but it just turned us into B12. It turned us into a place of dirty ministry. Anybody understand what dirty ministry is? Dirty. You just got to get dirty. There's a lot of mess. There's a lot of messes. Got to get your handy on it, right? In all honesty, who wants clean ministry? In 36. See, you guys know PJ and I well enough by now that we want to love on you and serve you, and we want to help God get everything He can out of you. Does that make sense? See, not a lot of people were interested in that. B15. They wanted a church that wasn't difficult. They wanted a church where people came in and they either hid their problems or they pretended they didn't have problems. But that's not PJ and I because that's fake. If you guys know us, we're not afraid to get down in the mud. B1.
I like you.
I know. We like you too. B1.
Yeah, hey, not many people do that.
But see, isn't that what Jesus said for us to do? And the reason I decided to go this route with bingo today, B11, is this just provides a great opportunity for you guys to get to know me a little bit better. So we opened the Hope Center, and believe it or not, the Hope Center